We got it. Hello and welcome to the Communicode podcast, episode 1.
Today we'll be talking to Matt Kaminer, who is a professional Ironman triathlete and medical student from London.
His expertise in health and fitness will be kicking off our monthly podcasts.
So if you do take any value from this, please join our community in the description below and stay tuned for episode 2 coming next month.
We hope you learn as much as we did talking to Matt. I hope you enjoy.
Right. Are you ready, Matt?
Welcome, Matt.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks very much for coming on, Matt. We're really grateful. The first part is basically just like an interview, which will kind of be based on you and your life story, and then the second part is more like your expertise. Obviously, this is going to be in triathlons and in medicine. So for part 1, we just thought we'd ask you to tell us a story from your childhood that made you who you are today.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks so much for having me on. Yeah, just tell you guys a little bit about me first, and then I'll kind of go into that. I'm Matt. I go to University of Bristol with Jacob here, and I study medicine. So I'm second year of medical school, and then alongside that, I pursue triathlon. And this season, I have reached the professional ranks, which is quite exciting. So that means I kind of race against some of the best athletes in the world across Ironman and half Ironman distances. So that's swim, bike, and run alongside medical school. So yeah, a lot of things going on, but kind of my 2 passions lie in medicine and triathlon, and just trying to pursue them both at the same time. So yeah, the first question you asked me about a story from my childhood.
Yeah.
Just to kind of keep it on where my expertise are, I'm probably going to pin that down to my first Ironman triathlon. I was 18 at the time, and I'd still classify that as a child, because I was still at the very start of my journey in triathlon, and I was so underprepared, mentally, just kind of knowing what it's going to be like. I hadn't done a half Ironman. I just kind of threw myself straight into the deep end there. It was about a week and a half after my last exams of school, the A levels, and I sent it fully to go to this Ironman in the north of England, 4 hours away from me. Had trained my ass off over the past year during my A levels, and turned up and had no idea of what to expect. I'd never run a marathon. I'd never cycled more than 180k, and this would be my furthest open water swim as well. So I was doing my furthest swim, my furthest ride, and furthest run all in the same day. And I was honestly shitting myself the day before. I just did not know what to expect. And I kind of, putting myself in kind of the deep end, just not really knowing what to expect. I think I learned so much about myself from that one experience. Do you know what I mean? Just being in that intense environment, out of your comfort zone, for a full 10 hours, pushing yourself mentally and physically to the absolute limit, was a day that I remember so fondly and proudly now. And I think it really has shaped how I kind of proceed in medical school and triathlon.
Yeah. It's unreal. What are the main things that you've learned about yourself in your life so far, and what kind of person are you? Because both, for me and Jacob, I would never dream of doing a triathlon myself, to be perfectly honest with you. I think I would honestly die within the first 3 kilometres.
It's a thing that people sort of aspire to do maybe once in their life.
Well, even a marathon, that's a big thing.
I know it seems crazy to some people, but to you it just seems so straightforward. And since we've been at uni, I feel like sometimes I'll say to Matt, "Oh, Matt, what are you doing today?" He goes, "I'm just going to go out and run a marathon." Yeah. No one says that. No one I know will ever just go, "Oh yeah, I'm just going to go." My mate was running a marathon today, so I thought I'd run alongside him.
Yeah, it's crazy.
What having these hard times and stuff, what have you really learned about yourself, and how does that kind of define the person you are?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and I think everyone kind of finds their passion at some point, and I'm just quite fortunate that I found it quite early. I've always been very active and fit, and through that learned so much about myself, my body, and how it adapts and responds to training and stuff like that. And then kind of going into triathlon over the past 4 or 5 years, it's just been a process of development that I've absolutely loved. I mean, there's so many setbacks, injuries, illnesses that happen, but that whole process of just every day turning up and you're not going to see improvements every single day. You're not going to see improvements every single week. But when you turn up every single day for months, years, then you start seeing results. And I think the key to that was just me loving it. I think as soon as you start seeing it as a chore or something you resent, or like there's obviously going to be training sessions which you hate. I mean, going out in 2 degrees in the winter when it's raining on a bike ride for 4 hours, that's not fun. I don't enjoy that. But by turning up then, I can turn up in summer fit and healthy and be able to perform to the best of my ability. So the lessons I've learned over the past 4 or 5 years pursuing sport is just the power of consistency and relentless pursuit of getting better.
I feel like with you as well, I feel like you're one of those, you're a person that you can't really come across people like Matt at our age, because I was talking to his mum a couple of weeks ago and she was saying to me how she thinks Matt's addicted to it, and she thinks that this is at the same time as having this conversation. About 2 minutes after this conversation, Matt came in, and this is just after he'd done an Ironman, but maybe the day after, 2 days after his Ironman, he said, I'm just going to go for a run. Yeah. And I found it so... The thing I found about you, Matt, is how you have nothing to no end goal to work towards, yet you're still going a massive run, and you still be so motivated to do it, even though you've got nothing to be working towards, which I find it tells a lot about your lifestyle and personality, really, about how committed and dedicated and disciplined you are.
Yeah, you're incredibly disciplined. I think that's a skill that a lot of people don't really have. It's a very rare thing to have, especially at our age. Obviously you see a lot of there's a lot of self-improvement going on these days, which I think is really good. But at the same time, it's still rare. You don't see somebody just go out and just go for a run. Not to mention, obviously, we'll get onto it later, but the fact that you, with the Ironman, you were injured, and 2 days later you're just running again, and it's are you even recovered? It's you're it's crazy. Your healing ability is just mad, and it's obviously just all through the physical health, and the development of your body. And just how your body adjusts to things, it's just crazy.
That's the thing, really. When I go and play football for an afternoon, and I come back, and the next day I'm in the bin.
Not even half an hour. Yeah, it's just 3 days you're out.
Yeah,
it's mad. It's mad.
So no, I appreciate that, and I mean, going back to what Jacob said first, I mean, about that addiction side, I actually would definitely agree with that. I think it is something that you get so ingrained with in your habits, and you get high of it, you get an endorphin rush, you love it, and you just want to see yourself improve, and that's what makes it so hard when you do get injured or you do get ill, and it's just about coming back from that. I couldn't agree more that it is probably verging on the side of addiction, but I think every single athlete, amazing entrepreneur, whatever, gets addicted to what they're doing. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think what can be difficult is turning that addiction off, which I've struggled with quite a bit. I mean, life moves on, do you know what I mean? Life isn't triathlon. I make a big deal out of it, but got to spend time with people I love. I'm going traveling for a little bit now for the next couple of weeks, and switching that addiction into something kind of transformative and healthy, and looking at the bigger picture. If I take a couple of weeks off now, I'm not going to not be able to triathlon 6 months from now. It's going to reshape my mind and reshape my body, and when I come back, I can go back into that addictive state. So it's definitely something I'm trying to balance all the time.
I think there's worse addictions out there, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you are right.
It's a pretty
but
pretty good
do you feel how do you think it affects you as a person when you maybe it doesn't go your way and you might get ill or you might get injured? How do you deal with the fact you can't be working towards your goals? Because it's not...
I mean, I do struggle, and I tell you, the reason I think I struggle quite a bit is because I do put everything into it. I think if I didn't put everything into it, if I kind of just was not half-assing it, but if I wasn't putting my soul into it, missing things for it, putting all my effort in, waking up early, and if I wasn't doing that and it started going wrong, I'd kind of have acceptance and be like, okay, that's because I didn't work hard enough. I often just find when I am trying to do it all and I get injured, that's when I find it quite mentally tough. But it is just part of life. It's never going to be linear upwards. It's just about turning up after that's happened, recovering, working on yourself mentally, not letting it get to you, and looking at the bigger picture. I think that's something I've definitely learned even more so over the past year, is in order to be a doctor, in order to do triathlon at a high level. Yes, I want a great result now. Yes, I want to do well in my second year exams, but I want to be a good doctor in 10 years time. I want to be a good triathlete in 3 years time. Like, I don't have to be amazing now. It doesn't have to work perfectly now. It has to work somewhat so that I can keep edging towards that long-term goal.
Yeah,
it's brilliant. It's a good symbol for like delayed gratification as well, I think, because there's
Yeah,
these
you're very
constant
right.
hits of instant gratification these days, and it's very unhealthy, and I'm sure everybody falls victim to it, to be honest with you, especially when it comes to just like scrolling through your phone like aimlessly. Like I'm probably the worst for it, if we're being completely honest. But yeah, the fact that you're thinking like so far ahead, and you can kind of like mold who you are today so that your future self will be in the position he is, 3 years down the line, probably, and he could be one of the top triathletes like in the world, is a very admirable thing. And what like what I would say as well, it's a bit of a deep one, but do you think that your life has disappointed you or exceeded your expectations? Not necessarily your life, but I think life in general, because what's your perception of the world? Because it's new to everybody that comes into this world. Like, nobody's got a handbook on how to do life. Like, what would you say the world is like through your eyes?
I mean, I'm not oblivious to how like corrupt the world is in general, but I like to look at every single individual and just not judge them for what they've been through, because the majority, 99% of the situations that people are in is because of what they've been through. If someone is overweight, you can't judge them for that because they may have been brought up on really bad diets. Or if someone is homeless, that may have been from things outside of their control or anything like that. And a lot of the tough things you see in the world is just from shit luck. I mean, the people in war zones who are in there out of no fault of their own, I mean, that is just shit luck. I mean, you can't blame anyone for the situations they're in. And I think I'm obviously like aware of the fact that, I mean, everyone in the UK, and then even us going to amazing universities and stuff, and then studying amazing courses, and then having the opportunity to do sport as well, is just an absolute privilege. And you've got to honour that and keep that perspective at all times. Like, if I'm injured, if I'm ill, like, shit happens. Like, this isn't as bad as shit can be, and you can move forward from it. I think dishonouring that and thinking it is the world and the be all and end all is not the right way to see it. You've just got to accept, like, that things happen. Like, the world is going to be shit. If it's not an injury in a race, it could be losing your job, it could be anything. You just got to try and stay as positive as possible to just move past it. So to answer the question, has life exceeded my expectations, or kind of brought back what I think about it? I mean, I'm still learning so much, but I think I've seen the opportunity for how you can try and make the most out of life, and I'm trying to achieve that, but without kind of understanding how quickly it can go wrong. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. What are the things that you absolutely prioritise and need to stay well and to function? I mean, I imagine probably discipline is one of them, because without that, where would you be as a triathlete and as a medical student, to be fair? So
sort of like your like non-negotiables in life,
yeah,
sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think as an athlete, the two things you see outside of the training are sleep and diet, and they are two things which are actually very hard to achieve, especially as a uni student in big student houses and late training sessions and early morning training sessions. Those are pretty hard to get by. But I think if you get sleep and diet well, and you don't cock that up, I think that is the foundation for any physical improvement, any mental improvement, any mood improvement. And it doesn't have to be these crazy 2-hour nighttime routines, or waking up and doing X, or eating perfect salad for every lunch. But I think just making sure have enough fuel, and then as good of fuel as I can, because underfueling for sport is a massive problem that lots of people face, and it kind of leads to injuries and burnout and not being able to train effectively. And then sleeping to recover and to get your mind adapted and body adapted to the training and studying you have done in the day are the two non-negotiables. Yeah, I think that's
in terms of like sort of relationships and other things like that. What would you say? Also, would you have sort of a non-negotiable? Would you have some time with your family that you have separate to your work? Do you have a couple hours in the evening where you turn off completely and sort of just chill and don't look at uni work or think about Ironmans or whatnot? Is there like a sort of non-negotiable with that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I quite like to view my kind of life in three kind of distinct categories, which are socializing, training, and then studying. And it's all about getting those three in balance. And that balance changes. I mean, during the exam period, it's pretty much mostly studying, bit of training, bit of socializing. Now, during summer, it's going to be a bit more socializing and then a bit more training and then no studying at all. And it's just about balancing those three throughout the year. But undoubtedly, the reason I can turn up every day is because I am supported by amazing people and have amazing people around me. There's no question I could do it by myself. I really like this quote from Nick Bear, where he says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I just think it embodies what I think about like achieving anything. I mean, if you don't have the people around you, they don't even have to do anything specifically, but they just have to be on your side and there when you do have problems. I mean, it makes the world of a difference. And for me, that includes, I call my mum most days. I spend time with, I live with a lot of people and I spend time with people in my house. I have amazing girlfriends who I spend time with and helps me to stay grounded and stuff and focus on the socializing outside of medicine and triathlon. And it's just, it's a fundamental to achieve anything, I think, having people around you.
Totally. It's about having that support circle, I think, and like almost like that really like that built-in community. And I think that's what we've tried to do with Communicode. That's kind of what we're trying to harness, you know, that really intimate community of like-minded individuals that just kind of want to better themselves and want to kind of be there for each other for moral support for many quests that they do in their life. So
we're very fortunate being brought up in that sort of way, haven't we? I mean, especially me and you, and I'm sure you have, Matt, as well. You've been brought up in a community and been brought up with very supporting people, whereas not every like the realistic view is
a lot of people that haven't.
Most people haven't, and that's why we're trying to sort of build this sort of community for like-minded people to sort of help each other out and try and grow as a group.
Totally, yeah.
Rather than
100%.
And so finally for part one, Matt, sorry to interrupt you. I was just going to ask, how do you feel? I mean, obviously, we both know that you've done very well in terms of social media with what you put out, and I think it's brilliant. I mean, I've been watching a lot of the reels. In fact, I actually watched one earlier when it was you've literally just cycled like halfway across the country, which is mental. But how do you feel that your own relationship is with your phone and social media and technology? Because I struggle with it. I struggle with just like aimlessly scrolling a lot of the time.
hang on a second. Oh, for right. 3 turns to 2, 2 turns to 1.
Dropping like flies.
We're dropping like flies, but we've got one camera left.
Final camera.
We'll be fine. Anyway.
If this one goes, then we're absolutely done for.
So, Matt, the next question I've got for you is, at any point, did you feel like there was sort of large expectations when you were being brought up in your family to succeed in life and to be sporty as such, or even just sort of to be successful?
Yeah, even in relation to the medicine, I think.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, that's a big aspiration.
Yeah.
I've never had that aspiration, not only because I'm not particularly interested in medicine, but was there anything kind of backing that from like family life or even just like friends or expectations in your mind?
That's a very interesting question, actually. And I think quite contrary to what a lot of people think, you probably think trying to pursue professional sport, trying to do medicine, whatever, that I probably had these really stressful parents kind of like nagging me to do all of this. Couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, they, A, are not sporty themselves, and B, never pressured me or my sister to go into science and medicine, and my sister's 2 years above me doing veterinary medicine. I think I don't know if it's in the blood or whatever, but we just kind of both had this drive to try and excel in academics and then in sport as well. I mean, we've both taken up sport to quite a high level, and academics trying to pursue really hard degrees, vet med and human medicine. I don't think it's from pressure from parents or people around me. I think what has happened is kind of my parents, through giving us amazing upbringings and being amazing parents, they kind of facilitated the opportunity for us to focus on what we really wanted to do. And that happened to be quite similar for my sister and I with what we studied and stuff like that. But I don't think it was pressure to excel in those aspects of life. It was more facilitating us to find our passions and pursue those to the best we can.
Yeah.
It's very interesting because there's not a lot of families like that. It does, from afar, it seems like there's something there that's always pushing you both on to do something, like
Totally.
as if there's some sort of added pressure. But if there's not, I mean, I've met your parents.
Yeah.
The motto of my parents is just do what makes you happy, sort of thing, as opposed to do what's going to make you successful, going to make you money. I mean, they care about that sort of stuff because they want me to be happy and they think that sort of stuff. But they never pressured me to do X A levels or do X medicine at university or anything like that. It was all kind of just finding my own vocation per se through having the opportunities, you know.
But that's what I thought after meeting your parents. I think your parents are your number one fan, but also they're also your number one hater. Because not only does your mum love you doing well and it's great to see you happy, but she also doesn't like it how you always she always feels like you're damaging yourself by doing it so much, even though you might not be. She feels she doesn't want you to overwork yourself, and she cares about you so much in that aspect that she might not want you to be the most successful person in the world because she just wants you to be healthy and happy.
Yeah, I guess it's
definitely. And I think all parents kind of want is a healthy, happy child. Do you know what I mean? Regardless of if they've made loads of money or they've had loads of success on X or Y, then they just want you to be happy and healthy as opposed to.
Well, I feel like you are. That is. I mean, it's not a given really in this sort of world. I think a lot of people do just care about their children's success and money and fame but it's so glad to see that your parents are very good parents.
Yeah, there's a lot of parents that kind of look through their children as a reflection on them, and obviously that's kind of natural, isn't it? Because you know a lot of somebody's childhood is a reflection of the parents of how somebody brought up. What's the expense of trading most of your time to train and study? Because I obviously train. We both train. We both go to the gym. I mean, we don't do ultra marathons and triathlons, but we kind of put in a little bit of work. It's only a couple of hours a day, but what would you say is the expense of trading? Basically, I would say, I guess, would it be 75 to 80% of your time probably, Matt? And then what would you say is a percentage ratio in terms of socialization as well?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think a quote I quite like is if you want something done, give it to a busy person. And I do think kind of just being so busy kind of means I don't faff around with going to the shops and getting that done. I don't faff around with doing my washing, I just do it, do you know what I mean? And I think that things that would take a lot of people lots of time, I just kind of don't want to sacrifice at all any of my time because I want that time to spend socialising and stuff. So although I spend a lot more time on training than other people would, I try to spend a lot less time on my phone and doing cooking and stuff. Even though I try to make nutritious meals, I just really try not to waste time that I could spend socialising, because socialising is something I absolutely love, but obviously can't do as much as I'd hope to. So yeah, that's kind of how it.
Do you think there's been added pressure and expectation because of your social media following? I know we obviously touched upon it briefly earlier, but obviously you've got quite a few followers now. Would you say that you feel an added expectation to do things and really get stuff done, or do you work it out? I
guess in particular when you were going to do your Ironman recently in Lanzarote, and we can touch on that briefly as well. But would you say there was an added pressure to do well and to try and get a better time than last time or whatnot because you have now this sort of following on social media?
I definitely think so. I try not to let it kind of get to me and stuff, and even when I started producing content, I was very kind of didn't know whether I wanted to share it, didn't know people would think about it, but I've kind of developed into, I've got a cool journey. I'm trying to produce it to inspire others and to share it so that other people can get ideas from it. People are going to have opinions. Everyone is going to have an opinion, and you just can't let that get to you, because someone's going to think it's pointless that I'm making content. Some people are going to think it's the coolest thing in the world, and those are the people I care about. Those people whose opinions I care about. People around me, they know who I am. They know what I'm like. They know what I aspire to be, and they support that. The people who I inspire through social media, amazing. They can hopefully help live more fulfilled lives and stuff, and pursue this amazing sport, or try and get into medicine or anything like that. The people who feel the need to comment on stuff or have negative opinions, if they want to follow me, fine. If they don't want to follow me, I really couldn't care less. If they have an opinion, they can keep it to themselves. If they share it, I'm not going to let it get to me, because that is not the purpose of what I'm trying to do, sort of thing. It is something that affects me. I mean, even when I kind of like have a bad race result, or if I'm injured and I'm not able to race, I do feel just a bit of a pressure kind of like from other people's opinions, but I'm really trying not to let that get to me, because it's a stressful thing to put yourself out there. I mean, I put a lot of my life on social media, a lot of my training experiences, my racing experiences, my medicine life, and even some of my like social and home life. But yeah, just trying to keep the positive in it and not let it get to me. It's definitely something I'm trying to work on.
Well, we can talk about your first Ironman that you did recently in the professional field, and that was also your first race where you have had a sort of following online. How did that feel when? Firstly, do you want to tell us a bit about that and sort of how that went?
Yeah, so I kind of committed to this one of the toughest Ironmans in the world, and a really tough race in itself, in May, to be my first race in the professional field. And in all honesty, I got a little bit run down in the lead up. I kept getting ill quite a bit, and then had an injury as well. I think just a combination of medical school stress and training stress, and just a bit of bad luck as well. And I was kind of very much on the fence whether to go to the race or not, but I decided to in the end, because it was one of the only ones that worked my medical school exams and stuff. So I turned up to the race with a pretty nasty injury. I hadn't been able to run for about 8 days before, but I thought my swimming and biking would get me into a good position, and then I'd be able to hopefully get through the run, depending on how it felt on the day. So I got on the swim, had swim of my life. I mean, I'm not from a swimming background, so it wasn't a phenomenal swim in terms of the professional field. I came up about mid-pack, beating about half of the pros and losing to another half of the pros. And on the bike, I was doing quite well, kind of held my position, made up a few spaces and stuff. And then about 5k from the end, I had a puncture on my bike. Tried to change it, did change it, went again, and it blew again. So I'd used all my spares. So I didn't actually get to try running. So I had to pull out of the race 5k before. I had to walk with my bike over my shoulder the last 5k of the race, of the bike leg. So it was definitely not the result I wanted, but I learned a lot from that day, the swim and the bike, and it's definitely given me a new perspective kind of on like how to see each race. So, yeah, it's kind of. And
do you feel like you're sort of being on social media? Do you feel like that affected you in a more negative way?
I think definitely. I think you put yourself out there. You're trying to prove, especially for me, that I can balance medicine and triathlon. And I think kind of I try not to call it a failure, because I think I learned so much that I'm not going to call it a failure. I'm just going to call it like something that happened which wasn't ideal, and I'm going to learn from it, sort of thing. And no doubt that social media, kind of having to break the news to my friends, to my family, and then to people I have never met before, but hopefully inspire somewhat, was quite hard. I mean, I did not enjoy that, but the amazing response you get from, I mean, as I said, the people around me, people who are inspired by me, and people who follow my journey for the right reasons, was quite overwhelming and amazing, and shows the power of social media. Definitely.
I also think like you're so. Another thing you don't really find that Matt has is that his online presence is exactly the same as he is in real life. Like he won't sort of fabricate anything. He won't sort of telling you white lies. Everything is completely like authentic and real. Which
it's not like a different persona to what.
Yeah, like he is the same.
See that a lot.
And obviously that's such a good thing because people out there want to know what it's really like. But also such negative. It could be a negative thing because he's opening himself up and is very vulnerable. And then when we had conversations before, you've had a couple of sort of people being obviously not very nice in your messages and stuff, and it can affect you. If you're opening yourself up, it can really affect you.
Yeah, massively.
But I feel like you, thankfully, deal with that very well, which is such a good thing.
You have a real resilience. And I actually wanted to ask as well about the social media. I want to know what made you get into it, to be honest with you, because I think probably by the time this goes out, we'll be doing a similar thing. We want to do a similar thing because we want to be able to promote Communicode. We want to be able to promote various different things. And so, did you feel like your perception was going to change in terms of like how people saw you? Do you think people would have been like, "Oh, look at this guy putting himself out there like that's so like cringe or whatever," or like, did you ever think like, "Oh, I care a lot about what people think," or were you just like, "I'm just gonna do it"?
No, I definitely did. I mean, I think the hardest part is the start. I mean, when you're just getting into it, you have no idea what the feedback's going to be or anything like that. I mean, I already had a bit of a following on a small account where I just documented my triathlon races, and I was a bit like, all right, if I'm going to have this account and I'm trying to pursue triathlon, I may as well show a bit of the behind the scenes, show a bit of what I get up to every day, and then started producing content about that. I mean, it wasn't like a huge switch. I just decided, okay, let's make a video about what I do in a day sort of thing, and then what I eat in a day, and just kind of went from there and there. It's a really daunting thing. I mean, putting yourself out there, what people you know are going to think of you, what people you don't know are going to think of you. Everyone has an opinion on everything, but you've just really, like, the one thing I've learned is that all that matters is the people around you, that they aren't going to change their opinion on you. Because I started making videos about myself doesn't mean my friends, my medic friends, my house friends, my home friends, my family are going to think anything more or less of me. Those are the people's opinions that matter. And then there are going to be some, I mean, you just get amazing messages from people trying to do the same thing or inspired by you. And that is the real kind of benefit from this whole social media thing, is inspiring others. If I'm completely honest, I started it with more of the intention of trying to see if I can get sponsors to support my triathlon journey, which is something that has come from this, but also just inspiring others and showing that it is possible to pursue high-level academics with high-level sport is something that I've learned has actually been more valuable from this whole process.
Yeah, it's brilliant advice, really good advice. And what you do is incredibly unique, to have the time consumption of the medical student type and then to go straight to triathlons. Like, you wouldn't think you have enough time in the day to be able to manage to do both of those. So it's really inspiring, really inspiring.
And well, even though I've known you for about 2 years now, Matt, and I think that every other week he seems to like sort of shock me again and again. Like Harry brought up earlier, how Matt the other week I mean, if you might follow him and you might have seen as well, but he didn't want to pay the train fare to get back home from university, so he managed to cycle home quick.
And you live in London,
250
you go to uni in
kilometres.
Bristol. That's mental.
250 kilometres, halfway across the country.
I don't know anyone that would think about doing that, let alone actually doing it. Like, it's mad.
Yeah, that was one of my sillier ideas. I mean, it was just kind of, I'm still unable to run because of that injury I told Landor. So it's like, all right, may as well do something fun. I mean, the £120 train fare, I mean, it was a bit of clickbait. I mean, you can get one for 40 quid as well. But it was just a really fun day out, just kind of like testing yourself, seeing what you could do. I mean, I'm just not taking myself too seriously. It's not that deep, do you know what I mean? Just have fun with it. It is just fun. Like, I'm not winning any races at the moment, so I don't need to have this crazy training plan, so I can just keep getting better each day and doing fun things in the process. Just, yeah.
It's amazing. I think what you said there, just about like, in a way, like paradoxically not taking life too seriously, like I think that's just so important, to be honest, because like us, like, we're very raw. We're not any different on camera than we are to being off camera, I don't think, but like we'll just have a laugh. And like this is a complete experiment, the first episode, but we don't really mind what comes from it. At the end of the day, we're kind of just doing it for ourselves. Like, the point of this is to really just learn from people, and if anybody can learn as well with us, then that's brilliant. That's kind of why we're doing this.
That's exactly what we're going for, really. We just want to better ourselves and in turn better other people through what we were doing.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely, through people seeing. But I think to be honest, we've covered a lot of what we were going to talk about. So we could probably finish up, Matt. We're really, really grateful for having you on. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much for being our first ever.
You'll probably see him next week.
Yeah. First ever person.
First ever
Thank
podcast.
you so much for having me. And I mean, I think what you guys are doing is just amazing. So keep it up, keep consistent. And I mean, it may take years, it may take days, it may take months, but just keep going, and something will come from it, because you are doing an amazing thing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so if you come through us and you haven't and for some reason you haven't seen Matt's socials before, do you want to sort of say what your socials are?
Yeah, we'll leave a little sort of
we can leave his thing in the description. So if you don't know Matt, go and check him out, because he's doing some mental stuff.
Very inspiring,
and you'll be shocked and inspired at the same time.
Very disciplined.
And I'm sure if you want to improve yourself, that's one way to start.
Big time. Oh yeah, massively.
So brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
See you in the next episode. Episode 2, hopefully out next month.